Well, there are major questions for the White House Friday amid new reports that National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn privately discussed sanctions with the Russian ambassador before President Trump took office. Earlier, I spoke to Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampell about why it's significant.
Well, it's interesting right now to see how the White House handles this, right? In any other administration, Flynn would be in really hot water because...
Democrat or Republican?
Yes, Democrat or Republican. You know, what he did, and assuming he actually spoke about sanctions before his administration was actually in office with a Russian diplomat, assuming he did that, what he did was not only unethical but potentially illegal. So in any other administration, he'd be in a lot of trouble on his way out the door. In this administration, you know, rules are up in the air, norms have been cast aside, so who knows? The one thing that could potentially do him in is that he may have potentially misled the vice president.
Right.
So as you may recall, Mike Pence actually went on TV and vouched for Flynn, saying, nope, he did not talk to the Russians.
In fact, we have that sound. Let's play that.
What I can confirm, having spoken to him about it, is that those conversations that happened to occur around the time that the United States took action to expel diplomats had nothing whatsoever to do with those sanctions.
So, referencing what you just said there, or he's saying what you just referenced, there are two things that I think people are wondering. Did Mike Flynn lie to the vice president? Or did the vice president go on national television and say, you know, this didn't happen? That's the question that people have right now. And however it goes, I want to read for our viewers, you mentioned the Logan Act. That is the legal act that says if Mike Flynn did what people are suggesting, what's being reported, then he's in real legal hot water. It says any citizen of the United States, wherever he may be, who, without authority of the United States, directly or indirectly commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government or any officer or agent thereof with intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government, it goes on to say, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both.
That's pretty heavy stuff.
That's heavy stuff. And what they're alleging and what the reports are suggesting is that Michael Flynn, after President Obama expelled Russian diplomats, put in more sanctions because of Russian meddling in the election, Flynn may have called the Russian ambassador and said, hey, you know what?
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. We got your back.
Right. We're gonna get rid of all this stuff. So what exactly Flynn said, we don't know. You know, there are a number of intelligence officials who have spoken to my colleagues at the Post and said he definitely led the Russians to believe that these sanctions were going to get rid of, or they were going to get rid of the sanctions pretty soon. You know, and so that's one unknown. The second is, what did he actually say to Pence? And if you look at the comments that Flynn, either directly or through a spokesman, has made this week, on Wednesday he said, no way, no how, I never said anything about sanctions. On Thursday he said, you know, I don't remember.
Right.
It's possible it came up. So exactly how unequivocally did he make this denial to Pence, assuming he made the denial? And then why did Pence trust him? You know, if it was somewhat equivocal, and why did Pence put his own reputation on the line when he went on national TV and said, no, this did not happen. There's no possibility that Flynn acted inappropriately and spoke about inappropriate things. So we don't know the answers to any of these questions, but if it is true that Flynn had these conversations with a Russian diplomat and then lied, knowingly, you know, denied them to Pence, you know, that is what could potentially do him in, because Pence, by most accounts, still has some say within this administration. You know, he's not the decider.
Right.
Trump may overrule, but this could potentially be very bad news for him.
Absolutely. All right. I want to talk to you about a recent opinion piece for the Post that you wrote, where you write the best way to make sure a message gets heard to try and muzzle it. Explain how both Republicans and Democrats, we were talking about this before the segment, have used similar tactics. In your piece, you talk about Milo Yiannopoulos and Elizabeth Warren, and you say that they have actually something in common.
Right, they're very different
supporters, people who support those folks,
they're aghast at this comparison. Yes. So what I was getting at is that in both cases, these public figures have been able to use attempts to censor them to their advantage, right? I mean, getting censored or the attempt of censorship confers great sympathy upon the speaker, some moral high ground, and also creates more interest in the message that the speaker was trying to impart. So in the case of Elizabeth Warren, she against the warnings of the majority leader on the Senate, continued to read a letter from Coretta Scott King, the civil rights icon, that was objecting to Jeff Sessions when he was being nominated for the federal judiciary 30 years ago. And she continued to speak. She was shut down and formally rebuked and silenced. And as a result, that letter got many more eyeballs than it ever would have been, on an obscure C-SPAN feed, right, on the floor of the Senate. So in that case, it definitely heightened the profile of the letter, the message that Elizabeth Warren was trying to impart, as well as her own stature, right? That this really energized the left in general, but especially around her. And not only that, but of course the comments that Mitch McConnell made when he explained why she was being silenced became a meme. And and you could not have scripted anything better for the slogan for a presidential campaign should she choose to.
She persisted.
She persisted, exactly. So in that case, I mean, I don't know that she was deliberately trying to get silenced. Some people have suggested that. She has not indicated that. But whether or not she was trying to get silenced, the mere fact that she was told to shut up actually elevated her and amplified her voice. And similarly, Milo Yiannopoulos, who's basically a professional troll, sort of a spokesperson of the alt-right who likes to get a rise out of people, insults lots of different minority groups, feminists, others. He has deliberately strategized around this idea, known as the Streisand effect, that when you try to shut down speech or censor a message, that creates much more interest in that message. And that's how he has built a following. He has provoked outrage, protests, sometimes violent protests, on the left primarily, which has drawn many more attendees to his talks and many more listeners to his message as a result.
I want to get your take on this. The president has been vowing to take the travel ban to court. We saw that tweet, all caps, see you in court. Now it appears he might be considering a new executive order. And that's always been the question, right? Some people have said, look, in principle, we agree with the president of the United States saying, I want to keep Americans safe, and this is the best way I think we should do it. And I've got issues with these 7 countries. But the way that it was rolled out, the way that it was written, that's where the legal challenges have come in. Do you see a point where the president says, you know what, we made a mistake? We've talked about this, but could, in this case, he say, let's try to roll this out again. Let me rescind that order and write a new one? Well,
I don't know exactly how they would market that.
I like that word, market.
Well,
yeah, that's what it
again,
is.
That's what it's about, right? It's about the optics here, and Trump very much cares about the optics and never being called out on being wrong. So I don't exactly know how they would position it, but I think that's really the only option that they have at this point.
Catherine Rampell of the Washington Post, it's always great to have you here, always a great discussion, and you could tell my producers are like, we got to wrap it up, but we're having such a great discussion. I thank you for coming by. It's really good. Thank you.